This is my 1949 Studebaker 2R10 truck that I bought for parts to support the restoration of my 1949 Studebaker 2R5 half-ton pickup. Today I'm going to remove the gauge cluster from the dash, and I just want to point out a few things as part of that process. The gauge clusters you see here, I believe, is a Type A gauge cluster based on some of the literature. The fuel gauge here has got the 3-terminal connection. That's one of the identification points for a Type A gauge cluster. And I also understand they're not compatible with Type B gauges, so just thought I'd point that out there for you. With the gauge cluster itself, this is the amp gauge, that's the fuel gauge. This is your speedometer. This is your oil pressure gauge. This is your temperature gauge here. This is your ignition switch. This is your light switch. This is your choke cable that goes to the carburetor. And then this is your dimming switch for the dash lights that are here on the vehicle itself. To remove the gauge cluster, it's got 6 studs that are mounted onto the vehicle here. So there were 6 nuts that I had to actually take off, 2 on the top, 1 on each of the lower corners, and then 2 down the middle. I had to take those off. In addition, if the choke cable was actually mounted, you could take it off right here, and that uses a 3/4 inch wrench to loosen up that nut right there. For the rest of the wires, a lot of the wires I took off, and I just used the 3/8 inch socket for the wires and also for the nuts that I took off from the dash. For the oil pressure gauge, I ended up using a 5/16 wrench, and I had to work it off slowly back and forth because, as you can see, it's the line is rusted on there. So I wanted to take it careful with that. And then this temperature line here comes down to the sending unit that goes into the engine block. In order to remove that, I use this 5/8 wrench here, and that larger fitting on the block I used is a 7/8 wrench to remove that. So what I'm going to do now, I've already taken the nuts off of the studs for the mounting the gauge cluster. I'm just going to remove the speedometer cable. I'm going to pull the temperature sending unit out, and then I'm going to take the whole dash out from there. Removing the speedometer cable, pull out the sending unit right there. Hopefully that puppy still works for me. And then I'm just going to take and push the dash out back to the pickup. Taking the sending unit with me for the temperature. Here's the gauge cluster itself. Here are those studs that I was talking about that were part of the gauge cluster that mounted to the back here. And again, this is the front. The front of the gauge cluster. Amps, fuel, speedometer, oil, temperature, ignition switch, light switch. This would have been the choke cable. This is your dimming switch for the gauge dash lights. So I hope that helps you out there and your work on your vehicle.